I am dropping it now. And everyone can observe. So for that one, bringing up there, I guess technically now I technically plus, because back in the day, old school so did not. Shannon's here because that's about what I can do right now. Living gardener and
Kevin, you got to turn that down.
Kevin, NYERS, and Gardner, and Dan Riddle.
Renee Lake, K21 Dan, and I'm from Southport.
David, Kate at 4 GAF, Phillips, and I'm the eldest statesman in this group.
Bob, and one JM from Gardner.
Todd, K1 TKS from Westminster.
I'm Richard. I've never been here before.
Great. Welcome.
N1 WSB, Westminster.
Perfect.
What was the first name?
Richard.
Nice to have you, Richie.
Thank you.
My name is Reedy Roy. I belonged to this club years ago for a while. In fact, I got my license and did the exam and everything through this club a long time ago. I maintained my number N1IUL, but I'm not very active on the radio. I don't use it very often, even though I have a 2-meter radio in the house. I haven't been using it, so I haven't really been very active with it.
Well, we're going to see if we can twist your arm and get more active. How's that? Ray?
I'm Ray, K1RL. That's in that section.
Cliff?
Cliff, W1CFW. And Paul, W1SCX and Gardner, and Ray, it's good to see you. Ray,
Okay, you guys that are online on Zoom, see if you can introduce yourself and we'll see if we can hear you.
Alan, K1UCY.
Charlie, KT1I.
Ken,
Go ahead.
Ken, WB8 PKK.
K6 IPO in Gardner.
Bob Coleman, K1QED in Athol.
Is that everybody?
No, that's one. We've got Daniel.
Daniel?
Yep. KC1, KEY, Cape Cod and Harwich. I'm a general.
Wow. Brad DX.
He gets the C guy. Charlie?
Charlie already came on. Okay, I think we got everybody. I keep a box in my garage, that box right over there, with stuff in it for the club. And I was going out the door tonight and I saw the box. I says, all right, I gotta see what's in that thing. Well, here's what's in it. March 17th, 2020. This is the last newsletter that, not the last newsletter, but the last one that was distributed at a meeting. ARRL mentoring guide is what we talked about at that particular meeting. Ray, Paul, you remember that, right? That's how long ago it was. We were also talking about sending out a mailer way back then. And here is the list. And we finally sent out the darn thing last week. And the result is here in the room and quite a few other things that are going on too. We also were talking very heavily about the inventory back then. And I had a copy of the inventory in the box.
It's like a time capsule.
Yeah, like a tank castle, yeah. Not quite as interesting as the one they opened up in Fitchburg last week, but that's okay. All right, so there's a lot of stuff to talk about tonight, but I'm going to jump to something that I thought of today. Well, first of all, Secretary's report and Treasurer's report. It's Jack.
I gotta say how great it is to be eyeball for such a long time. And number one, and number two, Paul had mentioned the Zoom meetings that we, the learnings that we have that we've gained over the past several months, where we've been refining the Zoom technique and being able to hold meetings, and now offer people the alternatives of either coming in person or doing it remote. It's just fantastic. It's good to be getting back to normal. Anyway, our last formal meeting was in July of this year. So ordinarily we take the summer off. We didn't this year. We continued to meet throughout the summer, formally in July, and informally in August. There were a couple of get-togethers to address some specific issues. But picking it up from last July, let's see. Bill, the item from Bill was that a September club meeting will be held in Gardner at the police station, and here we are this evening. That happened. Bill announced that the new calendar was operational on our club website, and that was a project that was very well done, and a lot of work went into that. Glad to have that completed. There was a discussion at the time about what we were going to do, if anything, if we could do, about a get-together, having at Norcross Hill, which was something that we try to do every year. Unfortunately, that just was not able to happen this year. Nils, KA1IMO, updated us regarding the extensive work that was done on the 3.7 repeater back in July. And I don't know, maybe you want to later on, Bill, give an update as far as actually what happened up there over the, over the course of the summer. I don't know if everybody is aware of what the damage that was sustained and how it happened, but in any event, and included the takedown of the VHF antenna and rework of the antenna and installation, the failure of the Kendacom MR4 repeater due to mice damage, the audio, which resulted in an audio board swap out attempt from our standby machine, the repurposing of the system fusion machine to get us back on the air, and further critter prevention, the steps that were made to the shed itself. Bill, subsequent to that, Bill made a motion, and it was passed unanimously at the meeting to establish a repeater purchasing committee. And Nils, KA1IMO, and Kevin, and Paul, and Bill would make up the committee, and that we at the meeting established a spending cap of $2,000, to go out and purchase a replacement for the existing 3.7 repeater, the aging 3.7 repeater. And $2,000 cap. If it found out that it was going to be greater than that, then the agreement was that that committee would come back to the club and we'd revisit the figure. And after that, the meeting was turned over to Fred, AB1 OC, and Tom, K1KI, who used our club meeting as a forum to introduce their candidacies for the position of ARRL New England Division Director. Both presentations really were good, and they were informative. They were very different, but we were thankful to have them here, and we again thank them for stopping by. So that was it as far as the business end of the meeting was concerned. And as far as the treasury function, we continue to be, and I'll use the term flush with cash. We ended up the month of September with a balance of, actually we began the month of September with a balance of $6,182.43. We had basically no receipts other than a couple of pennies of interest during the course of the month. We had minimal disbursements. A couple of items, a couple of members needed reimbursements associated with the work that has been being underway up at the repeater. And we ended up the month with a balance of $6,128.83. It's just an absolutely fantastic position to start the year in. So, very good. Yep. Thanks, Phil.
Thanks, Jack. All right, as I started to say, I had a brainstorm this morning, and it all started out with me going on the NearFest website. Plus, yesterday I tried to give stuff away, but it didn't work out very well. So I ended up with having a bunch of antennas left over, coax left over, and mounts for the roof, gutter mounts and stuff like that. And I ended up talking to Mike Mig, W1MIG, over in Ashburnham early this morning. And Mike runs a company out of Ashburnham called Radio Rescue. I don't know if you guys have heard of it or not. You have? Okay. Well, Mike has the proverbial shitload of stuff. He's got so much stuff. It's unbelievable. Well, he has decided that he wants to scale back, way back. And all he wants to do is work out of his garage instead of the warehouse that he has. And he's got so much stuff that he just wants to sell off at a reasonable price. I contacted Mike today after I did some brainstorming during the course of the day. And I said to Mike, Mike, I know you got a lot of stuff similar to the antennas and the coax and all kinds of other stuff. I said, would you be willing to donate it to the club after the anniversary, you know? And he says, I don't want to bring it back into the shop. So the answer is yes, I would do some serious donating. And when I tell you he's got I forget the size of the trailer. I think it's the same as our club trailer, 7x14, something like that. I am sure right now that trailer is full. And I'm sure it's also maybe 10% of what he has in that place that he wants to unload. So I'm saying to myself during the course of the day, and I'm not going to ask for an answer right now or anything, what would happen if we had a trailer and we had all his stuff, free stuff, which doesn't have a lot of dollar value, but it has $2 here, it's got $5 here, it's got 15 here, and so forth. It's all going to add up since our net cost on buying the stuff is zero. So that was kind of like thinking like that during the course of the day. So I went on eBay tonight and also Craigslist to see what the cost of a trailer would be. And unfortunately, like everything else, is compared to what we paid for our trailer, I think, and anybody can correct me on it, I think we paid $3,600 for ours. That was naked, yeah. But we kind of splurged on that trailer. We bought a really nice one. I don't know, a lot of you have seen it, some haven't, but it's really a nice trailer. For something like this, just getting rid of stuff, we would not need a nice trailer. We're going to need 2 wheels and a box that doesn't leak, as far as I'm concerned. So, do I want to go buy a trailer? Not really. If there was something out there that was cheap, yeah, okay. I found one for $1,500 in Indiana, 900 miles. I don't know. Still too early to think about anything like that. But anyhow, I'm bringing this up first tonight because during the course of the meeting, I want you to think. Okay, and then after Paul is done with his presentation, I'm going to come back and say, what do you guys think? Okay, you can tell me I'm all wet. That's okay. I don't mind. I'm the big boy. You can tell me it's a good idea. I'm okay with that too. And you can also say, Bill, it sounds like a great idea, but waste of time. I'm okay with anything you have to say. But, yeah.
Is Mike, so he's scaling back.
He's scaling way back. He wants to operate out of his garage.
And so is he, as his first step, is he going to go to Nearfest, hit the table, and just bring as much as he can?
Yep.
And try to sell as much as he can?
Yep.
And after Nearfest, then he's done with that?
After Nearfest, he does not want to empty that trailer and put it back in the garage. And that's, like I said, it's only a small portion of what he has.
No, I've seen it.
Okay, you've seen it, right?
Oh my God.
You can't even walk in the place. It's, I would say 40 by 60, something like that. You can't walk in it. You got to go sideways in the aisles.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, just one floor now. No, he's just one floor, and he doesn't have the back room anymore. Okay, so he has scaled back somewhat.
That is number one. Number two is, in your mind's eye, how would you see us as disposing of
Okay,
that?
what I'm thinking of is during the course of the year, and this is more of a social thing also. We can go to Boxborough every other year, something like that. We can go to Nearfest twice a year. And Ray, can you help me? Is there any other Hamfest at all? I know you still got Mount Tom, right?
Not still for the year,
Oh,
but Marlboro is a village trip.
yeah.
So
time on that for February.
Yeah.
There is, Framingham is gone. So we basically would have a road show.
It would be a road show, and it would be more of a social event than what we do now. Okay, we all, as individuals, walk around and say hi to everybody. But in this case, it would be people, we'd be sitting at our tables, and there'd be stuff all over the place. What I'm thinking of is the bread trays that they have at the bakeries. Get some of those and put a flat bottom on them and just keep stacking them. And when you get to the event, you just take them out, put them on the ground, let people pick. You know, let them make an offer. Don't even have to price it. Yeah. Yep.
So I'm up with somebody like myself or some of the other regulars up there.
Yeah. So it's just an idea, just a thought, and we'll talk about it after Paul gets done tonight. All right. The repeater. Would you like to go for it? Nothing new. Okay. So we're still in a state where the city of City of Gardner slid down the hill with a riding mower, hit our tower. The tower was attached to the shed, so we got a little bit of damage up there, and nobody wants to own up to it. So it looks like it's something we're going to have to fix in the spring. As far as the repeater controller is concerned, we're sticking with what we got for the winter.
At this point.
Yeah. Yeah. The only thing I would like to do is make sure we don't go off the air. Have something ready to go. And that thing's 20 some odd years old? 35, yeah.
Well, we haven't backtracked off of the repeater committee going out to procure a new.
No, we still relying on the repeater committee to make any decisions.
Yes.
You know? Okay, thank you. Short quickie here, Mark Kimmel. As you know, he doesn't come to meetings, but sometimes he's on Zoom, but not tonight. Has an IC 746 for sale. Great radio. Great radio. I can't imagine. I don't think he's going to be over $600. I really don't. Does that do 2 meters?
No.
No.
It goes up to 6.
Up to 6.
Is it? It is.
It does. Wow.
Yeah, 746.
Yeah, 746.
Now you have 169 countries on that radio, with a wire.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a great radio.
Awesome radio. I had one at one time, and it's just great. All right. Nearfest coming up. For you guys that just getting interested or aren't too active, Nearfest is in New Hampshire at Rockingham Deerfield Fairground. Okay, and it's going to be October 15th, which is a Friday. Opens up probably about 9, 10 o'clock in the morning and closes when it gets dark. We'll reopen on Saturday morning at 9, but as far as Saturday morning is concerned, there's a lot of people walking around before then. But if you're just going there for the day, you can't get in until 9. A lot of guys go, a lot of stuff for sale, a lot of radios, a lot of antennas, a lot of junk, a lot of antique stuff. Just a good place to go browse around and learn a lot from a lot of people. Yeah. So I'm also kind of thinking, I'm going to put this up for a vote or see who's interested. Would anybody be interested in having a club table up there this year? Nobody's jumping through the ceiling.
So Bill, I actually think your idea is great. I think a club table would be a great thing to do up there because many of the clubs do. We would just have to not rely on one person or two people to staff it.
Absolutely, Ken, you're right. So we have to have a couple guys Saturday morning and at least 4 guys on Sunday on different shifts. And that gives
just the opposite. Because Saturday's the big deal day, Sunday's the wind down.
Yeah, Sunday's almost nothing.
Right, so you need more people on Saturday.
Yeah, I don't think there's anybody there Sunday at all, unless they hold a church service.
Ah,
So is anybody interested in something like that just this year? Or?
I would be willing to help staff it, yeah.
Okay.
And I'll even be up there because I'll help set it up.
Okay, that's two.
I'm out of town.
You're out of town. You're going? We don't want to. Okay, so that's, well, we get enough to think about it anyhow. Okay. Ellen Anderson was supposed to be here from Petersham. I don't know if she got lost or what, but Ellen Anderson responded to the letter that I sent out. I'm going to speak for her. I don't know how long she's been a ham, but she's one of the very few hams in Petersham. What she would like to do is get a social group going in Petersham of hams. I guess she's a member of the Cultural Society or something like that. And she's talked to some other members of the Cultural Society, and she thinks that they would be very interested. They have shown interest. So I was on the road today, so I really couldn't talk to her. But she wanted to know how much we would charge to do classes. I couldn't even answer her. I had to get off the phone. Obviously, we don't charge. And then we could hold a test session up there if they wanted to. So I'm going to respond to her by saying that, yes, we will help you out. Yes, we will do some classes. They preferably here in the EOC, but if we had to go up there, I guess we could if they have a location that we could use, and take it from there. Any thoughts on that for anybody?
Yeah, I'll be glad. Let me know. I'll be glad to schedule a VE session. If we get, we did the one at the Masons. We're doing the one at the EOC. If we can do two more in 2022, we then become a stocking location for the ARRL. That's a very big, important thing if we can accomplish that.
Right. Ken, I think you should schedule dates on that anyhow, so we are a stocking, so you don't have to return anything to them.
We don't get the option until we've completed 4. I already tried.
Are you Ellen?
I am.
Oh, good. Glad you showed up.
That's great.
All right.
Is she, maybe she can answer or something. Talking about like an introductory to ham type thing?
I don't know. I'm going to find out. All right, for you guys that are not here, Ellen Anderson just showed up. And say hi to Ellen, everybody.
I know.
So anyhow, I just spoke up for you for, I didn't know you were going to, if you were going to show or not. Yeah, it's all right. So. So would you like to take 5 minutes now, or you want to relax for a few? Okay. Why don't you come on up here? Okay, if you don't mind. Just watch out for the wires. Now, if you come up here, then the guys at home can see you. You have a head count?
Yeah, 15 and 6.
How much?
15 and 6.
When that?
Here, I would have put some lipstick on if I'd known I was going to be on TV. Okay. Okay, so my name is Ellen Anderson, KC1ETL, and I live in the town of Petersham, and I'm pretty much the only ham there. The guy, Mark Hager, who was going to help me get connected, died, turned his antenna toward me, and that was the end. So it was about 5 years ago, and I, at the time, just have not had time to do much with it. I got my grandson in Colorado to take the test, so he's a ham. I offered my other grandchildren $100 and a Bafang radio if they would, but they haven't. So it occurred to me the Cultural Council in Petersham has some money, and it occurred to me that it might be really fun to try to put together a ham radio, amateur radio club in Petersham, comprised of children and grown-ups, obviously. So I think the grant is due pretty soon, and I just thought of it. And I just got a letter from you guys saying that you had a club, and I looked online. I see that there's plenty of video instruction now on YouTube. But I think I would need the sponsorship of a club in order to pull it off. So let me just tell you quickly what I see as a goal. I would want to establish an amateur radio club in Petersham and also surrounding areas, but the money would come from the Cultural Council, so we'd center it in Petersham, with enough repeaters that all town residents can communicate with each other and reach hams in other towns, for a starter. So I'd like to involve a diverse population of all ages. Particularly, we have a bunch of retired residents who are pretty technically capable, and we have middle and high school students. My thought was that we might, again, offer a prize for the first boy and girl 18 and under who passes the test, and allow people from Petersham, outside of Petersham, to participate if we don't have enough kids there. So the first thing I'd like to do is the education, which would be to prepare people for tests and administer them. And it seems to me that there's a good video online. There's a couple of them for the technical license. But I think the people would need books. So when we've done programs before, sometimes we've asked anyone who can to buy a book. I think I paid a lot of money for mine, actually. But certainly for the kids, we might want to put in a budget item to buy the books if you guys think that books are necessary now. Then we would recruit the people, and we would actually do the training. And I assume you guys administer tests. I see that there are some online, but you must do tests, right? And make sure that we have at least one grown-up participating from each hilltop in Petersham, because we're, as you know, we're hilly, and so we can't reach each other. I can't even get to my daughter, and she was 2 miles away. And so we would assess, while we're training, we would assess the locations of antennae and repeaters, and particularly make sure that we've got people signed up who are in good positions. So that would be the first goal, would be sort of an assessment of and placement of people in education. Then the second would be to get people equipped with the equipment after they pass the test, and help people set up antennas and repeaters. That's what I can't do. I can teach, I can learn, but when it comes to actually plugging the stuff in and figuring it all out, I just haven't been able to do that by myself. And then test the system and get people communicating. And then the phase 3, which might have to go, I don't know how many years this would take. I don't know if we could squish it into 1 year. Don't know how much it would cost, but then step 3, after we're set up, is to begin to do some sort of community service and get people involved in the kinds of things that you do. I'm very interested in then trying to move to low tech, so that we have a new internet system in Petersham. It's Matrix, and it's very, very high tech. The kids are just online all the time. I'm very interested in the very low energy applications. I haven't quite got Morse code, but I'm working on it. And begin to train people for events and emergencies. And I don't think that, I guess you have a lot of people in Gardner, but once you get out toward me, I just don't think, I haven't been able to find anybody. So anyway, I brought 4 copies of this in case anyone wants a copy with my contact information. So I just need somebody to interact with to get advice on how to put a budget and a plan together. I can fill out the grant. I think it's probably due in the middle of October. So if you think it's a good idea, I just need someone to work with me on it. Oh, yes.
I'm Ray. I'm Western Mass Section Manager.
Uh-huh.
basically in charge of this area.
Mm-hmm,
Now, New Hampshire has a system manager. His name is Pete Storr.
mm-hmm.
If I can get your contact information, what I could do is I'll contact him and see what he could do on the New Hampshire level to help you out with that along with us.
Okay,
Whereas we're probably in closer proximity to stuff. You know, there may be resources in New Hampshire that might be able to come to your aid to maybe push this thing along a little bit more. What we can't do, they might be able to take up the
okay.
slack.
I started out with somebody in Leiden. There was a very good group, small group in Leiden, but it's a long way from me. Leiden, Mass, yeah.
She's in Massachusetts.
I'm in Petersham, Massachusetts. Oh, yeah. I'm just down the street.
That's the Franklin Club.
No, they're a long ways away.
Yeah, you guys are way closer. Leiden is way far away from me.
Yeah, there's clubs out there. There's Franklin Club, which is probably one you dealt with. That's in Wheatfield.
Yes, right, yes.
Yeah.
But it's much farther than Gardner. I didn't know there was anybody in Gardner. Yeah. So there's a lot of you.
So then I would be the one to, provide whatever assistance I can, along with this club. We can get you up and running.
Okay,
I'll get your contact information.
yes.
I'm also going to give you a couple of magazines because you made the trip out here. And these are a couple of available publications.
Yeah, I've never paid my dues to them. Yeah, I see, yeah.
Okay. I thrive in giving stuff away.
Thanks. Thank you.
And I'm Paul, I live here in Gardner.
Okay,
One of the gentlemen on Zoom is Ken. He just finished running a course.
Oh.
Through the Masons. I'm currently running a course at Mount Wachusett Community College.
okay,
So when I get done, which will be at the end of October, then we can start talking about getting a class together for your area.
okay.
And there's no charge for the class.
There's no charge for the classes?
No.
Okay.
So, good evening. This is Ken Burstall. I'm in Westminster, and what we've done, and we had at one point we had 17 kids, mostly Masonic kids, age 9 to 16. And what we did is we did what's called an introduction to ham radio. We did it up at the Masons Lodge, which is a pretty good size hall, if you would. We set up multiple stations, I think 6 different stations we had. Paul set up one. Bill, who's right behind you, set up another one. Cliff and I set up a 2-meter. And then we arranged with other local clubs and local hams to get on so the kids could actually get a little bit of hands-on and get some excitement.
Okay, what radio? Yeah, sorry.
We supplied our own radios.
Okay,
We did put a couple antennas out on the porch. Cliff tried to throw me over the edge one time. But, such as it be. But we actually got kids on the air. We got them working local repeaters down to, we use Gardner and we use Paxton and Worcester.
did they have their licenses already?
No, absolutely do not. This is just an introduction to get them excited, if you would.
Okay,
We showed them a tape measure antenna. We showed them a number of different things. We also showed a video that we can do of getting a communications with the space station.
okay,
and low altitude ballooning. Now that has to be worked with a school district or something like that, but that's all available. Paul has a very good video of doing a dirt road rally, which was very good.
okay.
So what we can do, and I'm sure I can speak for the rest of us, we'd be glad to put on a introduction, and then if the kids are interested, we'll teach a course. We did the last one for about 1 hour every Saturday for about 6 weeks, and we just had the end of July, or end of September, excuse me, end of July. We had a test session where we came out with 13 new hams. most of them kids and their parents.
Mhm.
And we ended up giving them each a Bofang radio.
Okay, well, we could, I mean, I think the cultural, but there is some money in the cultural council, so if there's some books or some things that we could buy, we should talk about how that would work.
That all can be printed off. The kids can, what I recommended to the kids, and we had some good learning experiences as well.
Okay.
Instead of buying the actual books,
yeah,
we tell them where they can download them off of the web, and bring the downloads with them to the class.
Okay.
Okay, Ken, I'm going to cut you off because we got a lot of stuff to go through.
One
Hold on.
You're envisioning something that would be available to young
and old
and not so young.
Correct.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
We are just making some notes of what you're talking about.
Yeah.
We are the boilerplate
Right.
for everything that you have done.
That's what I was hoping. It sounded that way. So I'd like to,
There's nothing that you have brought up as a goal that we are not involved in.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, it's just that there's nothing where I am. So
I understand.
Right.
I'm from Ashburnham. There's nothing out there either.
All right, so Ellen, to sum it up, Paul will do the teaching, Ken will do the testing, and we're all going to pitch in. Really, the only thing you've got to do is get the people together. Come up with a group. It doesn't make any difference how large it is. The larger, the better. And come up with a location in Petersham. However, we would much rather do it here at the EOC. But if transportation becomes a problem, with your group, we would go to Petersham. It's 8, right?
Typically, what we do, really trying to be successful, is that we integrate with the YouTube videos.
Right.
And so, in other words, the class I'm teaching right now, they have the book. I have all the materials, all the syllabus and all that they would need to learn. So it's all already in the can and ready to go. One of the advantages of doing it here is, number one, it's local. I got to bring in a lot of gear. And number two, we've already got a ham station here in our emergency operations center. So you want to have an initial meeting, this would be a perfect place because we can give mobile information. We can see what a ham station looks like and experience some of that as we go along. That's good. Yeah, it would be ideal if we can do it here, if we get the people that'd be willing to come out to garden. I'm the emergency manager here, so I've got this whole facility.
Okay, so we got it all for you, okay? And as far as money is concerned, the cost of the book and the cost of the test, which I think is $15. Am I right?
It's $15.
So
when the finally gets around to implementing their piece next year,
okay.
So the things that I'm just thinking, I put a grant together, I would assume that we've got the class and need the money for the books, but then the next step would be to try, but I guess we can't really take the next step until we see who we have.
Right.
But the next step would be to try to get the antennas up in Petersham and the equipment in Petersham. That would certainly cost some money, right?
Well, the equipment mostly, we have a group here called the Ghostbusters. Like when you need to get in antenna installed, who are you gonna call?
Yeah.
That's what a ham radio club is for. And for helping people come into the house. I'll help them install antennas, set up the station, giving, guidance to do hams to get them out of the unit.
You need help? Who do you call? All right. So, one more quickie. A new version of WSJTX came out today, and it's an improved. It's not a temporary 2.50. And I read through it. It's got some good items. So let's go to the mailer. We sent out a mailer 2 weeks ago. 136 letters were mailed out. 8 were returned for bad addresses. I expected that. One offer of an antenna. That's, did I mention it yet today? Oh, I haven't. Okay, that's good. All right, there's a guy in Jaffrey, New Hampshire, or New Hampshire, it's one or the other, who has I think it's a Mosley AT33. Is that TA33 with the 40 meter element on it, and it's on the ground for the taking. Be nice for the club to pick it up, but you know, I don't know where we would put it. So that's so that happened. We got one offer of picking up an estate of a deceased ham. Paul and I went over and looked at it on Saturday night, and the grandson got there first. So that took care of that, I think. That's kind of what she said. Yeah. 2 people already belonged and told me so. We got one guest speaker out of it, Paul Newman from Athol. He is going to be speaking at next month's meeting, and that's going to be quite the meeting. That's going to be a little Earth, Moon, Earth type stuff, satellite stuff, UHF, VHF contesting. That is going to be a really good meeting. I'm urging everybody, and I'm sure we're going to send out more notices about that as the month goes through. And we got 3 or 4 people that woke up and said, oh, yeah, I forgot about you guys, Rainey being one of them. Here she is tonight. And then we got a few other people that we haven't seen tonight, for a while. So as far as I'm concerned, that was I sent out an email saying that if we get a 5% return, it's awesome. We got over 5%. We're probably around 9%, something like that. That's unheard of in any business that you're in today. You don't get that. So that takes care of that. Oh, no, it doesn't. Because of that good return, I've contacted ARRL to get another set of labels to see if we can send out another mailer maybe in 3 or 4 months from now as a reintroduction again and saying what our programs are going to be through the summer or through the fall and winter. Ray, can you get a hold of clubs at ARRL and wake them up? I've sent an email like they asked. I've called twice. I'm not getting any response. Club membership, yeah, so I can get a set of labels. Yeah, if not labels, I think they'll send out an XL, which would be good too. Okay, that is all I have. Does anybody have anything that they would like to bring forward? Don't be shy.
Bill, I got something.
Go ahead, Pete. Bob.
Yep. In last week's Athol Daily News, there was a note from the fire chief who wants to establish a new CERT program in Athol. And he's looking for volunteers, mostly people who are ambulatory, able to go out to emergencies and such. But is there a place for amateur radio in the CERT program?
Absolutely there is, and Paul's coming up to the desk right now. Maybe he can touch base on that.
I knew he would.
Yeah, Bob, indeed. The CERT program here in Gardner is mostly ham radio operators. So they're the ones who run our radio room. They're the ones who run not just the ham side of it, but also the public safety radios as a backup and handle all the communications for the EOC. So those folks are very important to us.
Okay, I'm going to get in touch with the chief and suggest that we don't have that many hams in Athol. I don't think. Myself and Mark and his wife, and are there many more that anybody knows of?
Well, if you go and search, go into your QRZ and search under the database, just put in 01330, you'll be surprised how many hams are still in Athol.
I'll do that.
Okay?
Okay, great. Thanks, Paul.
You're welcome. All right, before I get started.
I'm going to take a break before you get into your program.
Okay, well, I'm going to do this first. All right. Kevin, front and center. An anonymous ham would like to step here, has made a donation to the club and to you as well, Ken. Ken, you there paying attention?
I can.
Say something, Ken.
No, I'm not paying attention.
Okay, well, we got you anyhow. All right, so this is for you. But Kevin, congratulations. You became a ham when? 1987.
Yeah.
And when did you upgrade to general? When the rules changed.
Yeah, when the rules changed. I got Tech Plus first. That's what made it happen.
Well, there you go. Well, we came in with Morse code, so there you go.
Yeah.
But congratulations. We have an anonymous ham made a donation on behalf of the club. Congratulations on passing your FCC amateur radio extra class examination. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Great job.
Right, and there's one in there
Long
for
time
you.
coming, everybody, but if I can do it, you can do it. For sure. Well, thank you very much. It's a good thing I didn't get the Vanity Pulse on I applied for this week.
Oh, it didn't come through?
I was going to get N1ER,
Okay.
but someone else got it.
Yeah, that's a good one for CW.
We're going to take a 5-minute break. We're going to pass out applications for them. Anybody wants to fill one out tonight? And Jack's going to go around and sell tickets.
We're going to have a 50-50. 50-50.
And Ellen, you're going to read the last 3 digits. Oh, you already did it. 772. 772. All right. Look at that, Bob. You joined tonight and you're already ahead of the game. There you go. Okay, we're at that point now. We are going to turn the podium over to Paul, W1SX, and he is going to give us a demonstration on programming transceivers.
Thank you, Bill. I'm Paul, W1SEX here from Gardner. I recently purchased a new transceiver. Yeah, why don't you leave them on there, Bill? A new 2-meter 440 transceiver for my car. And I know technology's been advancing since the last time I bought a new radio, but I was just absolutely blown away with the capabilities of it. So it took a while, but I had to totally rethink how I was doing my radio. So let me get into a screen share here so that those online can see the presentation. There we go. All right. So anyhow, what we're going to be talking about is programming the new radios that are out there, whether it be a mobile unit or a portable unit. It doesn't make much difference. I mean, it's not the way it used to be. Let's see here. There we are. Before I get started, keep in mind, operating your radios in a mobile environment is just as hazardous as trying to use a phone or texting while driving. So you've been warned, right? Keep that in mind and operate your mobile and your handheld safely. And especially when you're out with your handheld, make sure you're not tripping over stuff or falling into the public fountain. You've seen those YouTubes, I'm sure. All right. As far as monitoring public safety, communications, you want to be very careful about doing that. In Massachusetts, it's perfectly legal to listen to the police while mobiling around in your car. In other states, not so much. Big no-nos in the state of New York, Connecticut, New Jersey, Virginia. They take a very dim view on having you listening to police transmissions in those states. The Communications Act of 1992 made it legal for ham transceivers to receive public safety communications. That doesn't give you the excuse to listen while mobiling in those states that have laws preventing that. So be careful. Right? So where did we come from and how did we get to today? Back in '63, the FCC put out a mandate that all land mobile radio, that's be public safety and businesses that use the VHF and UHF land mobile frequencies, go from AM to FM. They made it mandatory. Some of those agencies and businesses were already FM, but they had to narrow down their deviation to 5 kilohertz to make more room on the band, right? And with that, at the same time, the amateur radio community was primarily AM for voice modes on VHF and UHF. With that 1963 mandate, that meant there was a ton of equipment that came on the surplus market, right? A lot of those old FM radios were coming around and being made available to hams, right? And you started seeing radios like these show up in hams' cars and on their benches, right? Some of the more popular ones were the Motorola T-Power, GE Progress line, the RCA LD series. These were tube radios that fit in a trunk, right? The T-Power used a transistorized power supply, but as it was still a tube radio, still ran on high voltage. The Prog line, as they called it, and the RCAs, they were all tube radios, and they had vibrators in the power supply to generate the high voltage, right? The car phone was a hybrid. The receiver was all solid state. A good portion of the transmitter was solid state, but the finals and drivers were tubes, right? You could buy these radios new if you wanted to, but they were rather expensive, right? For example, I remember seeing in 1965 my local police department updating their cruiser fleet to AMC Ambassadors at $2,195 base price for each one of those cruisers. The Motorola Motrax that they put in were $1,995. Right? $200 less than what the car cost. So they were very expensive radios, right? They were of absolutely superb quality, right? Those radios at that time, right? If you look at the picture on the right, that is a GLB channelizer. That was engineered by one of the finest RF engineers that I ever knew. His name was Gil Bolke. His call sign was W2EUP. He was one of the premier repeater builders in the Buffalo area where I came from. And he had a whole line of these synthesizers, right? These radios that we're talking about were all crystal controlled. And you would drop in a crystal, and if you were lucky enough to have a 4-channel radio and a 4-channel control head, like the Motrax that you're seeing there, then you were pretty good, but you were stuck on 4 different frequencies. But if you had a GLB synthesizer in one of those crystal positions, then you were free to go anywhere on the band that you needed, that you wanted to go. And they had them available for 2 meters, 220, 440, and so forth. So FM was becoming the primary phone mode on VHF and UHF, right, in that area, right? Once the surplus started to run out, then we got some of the manufacturers involved, right? And some of those, like Regency, was a big one. Drake, ICOM, Wilson, Sonar, and there are others as well that were out there providing amateur radio, 2 meter, 220, 440 FM equipment. But did you ever think you're ever going to get out of one of my lectures and not hear something about Heathkits? So there you go. All right. In the meantime, there was also something happening in a similar industry, right? A lot of people were becoming interested in listening to their police departments, their fire departments, and they were buying these tunable receivers, right? If you were a police or fire department and needed to monitor another frequency, you would get one of these types of radios that was crystal controlled, or the GE, RCA, and Motorola had dedicated receivers that were all crystal controlled. But consumers were buying these in single or multi-band radios. They were tunable, but they didn't perform too well. For example, I had this very model, and I would tune into my local fire department, and that happened to be on 154.13 megahertz. The City of Buffalo Fire Department, which was not very far away, was at 154.19, and I would receive both of them perfectly clear on this receiver. So they were a bit broadbanded. Until, of course, in the early 70s, they started coming out with scanners, right? That's an 8-channel Regency. Radio Shack had them, Bearcat had them, and you had, people buying these in 4, 8, or 16-channel scanners. They were all crystal controlled, and they did work pretty darn well. Then something funny happened. Regency got the idea that, hey, we've got a very good scanner, and as you saw in the previous photo, Regency also made two-way radios, commercial and ham radio, and then they came out with this guy, right? The MR2MS, or HR2MS. It was a VHF high band scanner tuned to the ham band with a transmitter. And if you were a ham back in the day and you had one of these in your car or your house, you were a big man on campus because you were listening to the local repeaters and the simplex frequencies on a scanner, and it was absolutely wonderful. And then, of course, as time goes on, we're starting to get into the more modern stuff, and you start to see radios like this, right? Solid state, of course, microprocessor control, and memories. This radio is from the very late 80s, the Kenwood TM2500 series. It came in a 25 watt or 45 watt, or even at that time, a 70 watt mobile, right? This radio was the radio to have at the time because it was not only available in high power, but it had 16 programmable memories to it, and it had a helical front end that made it as bulletproof as any Motorola radio out there at the time, right? So technology was improving, right? But as time goes on, you had to start thinking about, how these radios have evolved. And the biggest thing about them, transmitters are transmitters are transmitters, so it's all in the receiver, right? So beyond those days, all right, let's see here. The current radios that we've got now, even a decade ago, the stuff that we've got is incredible, right? The dual band radios available nowadays, and we're talking both portables and mobiles, but we're going to stick with the mobiles for this example, right? Would be a dual band radio that has one receiver in it, but that receiver is multi-band. So you could program your 2 meter and your 440 frequencies into it and operate. And some radios could even go beyond that. Aircraft band, 800 megahertz band, and a typical example of that would be the ICOM IC208. And that's a really great radio, but it has 300 memories to it for programming, right? The next type of radio would be a dual band with dedicated VHF and UHF receivers. In other words, it's got a transmitter that's dual band and then separate VHF and UHF receivers in it. And a typical example would be the IC208. The yellow characters are the 2-meter side of the radio. The green characters are the 440 side. And there were two real separate receivers in there, and they would independently scan and program, and you could receive both at the same time.
Still got one of those?
Yes, I do. That's on my main position. So they're a great radio. Matter of fact, it is the radio. All right. So anyhow, beyond that, the current rock copper radios and the one that I bought just blew my mind. Right, 1,000 memories in the thing. Right, but the unique part of it is its two receivers are multi-band. The IC208 has one receiver that's multi-band. The new radio I got, the Alinco DR735, has two separate multi-band receivers. So you can have one side of the radio receiving a VHF frequency and the other side of the radio also receiving a VHF frequency, or one VHF, UHF, or UHF, UHF. So the radios are becoming far more flexible as to what you're doing. So what it really takes nowadays is a whole different mindset about how you're going to program your radio. What are you going to do with the radio? And oh yeah, by the way, just so you get the idea that, you know, why are you buying such a complex radio? Well, they're not really complex in what they're doing, but this radio I bought for $308, brand spanking new from HRO. That's not a lot of money for a radio, especially when coming out of Japan instead of out of China. So the quality is much better, but they're not expensive. So you're going to look for a decent dual band these days, you're going to get one of these, like it or not. So now you can keep it simple and put in your local stuff and be done, or you can start to get adventurous. And if you're doing anything with public safety, public service events, that's where these things really start to shine. If you travel, right, and we're talking, you know, you're not just out of the north central Mass area, but you're going down to Worcester, or you're going over to Western Mass, or you frequent Boston every once in a while, or you got a place out on the Cape. Having these kinds of radios can really allow you to get a lot more fun out of your radio, right? So 1,000 channels, how am I going to manage 1,000 channels in my radio? All right. So think of it as a scanner, because that's what it really is, and it's got a transmitter in it, right? 1,000 channels, right? And these things had so many channels in them, the manufacturers knew that they would have to come up with a scheme for helping work with these radios. So they created banks, right? In other words, you'd have certain channels that were dedicated to certain banks. For example, you got a 500 channel radio, you could have 10 banks of 50 channels per, right? But that was very inefficient. For example, I want to monitor 5 frequencies for my Gardner public safety stuff. A couple of police frequencies, a couple of fire frequencies, the highway department, maybe the housing department, the local government, right? So you got a handful of frequencies, you put them into a bank, right? Let's say I've got 6 frequencies I want to listen to. That's 44 wasted channels. So what the manufacturers started doing, finally, is making the memory dynamic, right? So in other words, You got 1,000 slots to put frequencies. And then each of those frequencies you can program into or become active in any one or all of the banks, right? For example, 146.52, the simplex frequency. I want to monitor that almost all the time. So regardless of where I go, I've got 146.52 programmed and active in each of the 10 banks in the radio, right? So think of the banks first. And to help you with that, what are your listening priorities, right? Are you there just for the QSOs and just the ham radio stuff? Do you want to be able to keep an ear on your local police and fire when you're out in the car or at home, right? So you want to think about what your listening priorities are, right? And what you want to listen to. Everything, right? Your local police and fire. You want to have all of the repeaters in Massachusetts available at your fingertips, right? So think of it geographically. If I had every repeater in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts plugged into my radio and I was scanning them, it would take forever to scan from one end of the list to the other, right? And if I had channels and I could do lockouts, well, now you're managing the radio actively and only bringing in channels as you go along. Again, watch the safety factor. You're driving, right? It becomes a pain. So if you're thinking of programming your radio, first think of the banks, right? What do you want to listen to, right? And where are you going, right? For example, when I'm in town, all right, I listen to one bank program for public safety. So there's just a few channels in it. And I'll tell the radio, okay, on the right side of the display is going to be my public safety, and I'm going to listen to bank 10, right? For the ham radio side, I'm going to program 10 frequencies for local repeaters into the left side of the radio in bank 9. So now I'm just listening to those two banks. Frequently, once a week, I take my wife down to South Worcester to a physical and occupational therapy session. Well, I'll knock out bank 9 and I'll put in bank 8, which includes all the repeaters in Worcester County. So now I can drive from Gardner to South Worcester, and I'm listening to and scanning all the repeaters that my radio can hear in Worcester County, right? So I've made 3 clicks on my radio, and I've got a whole new set of frequencies in there. I'm not having to worry about lockouts and all that stuff. So it becomes safer to operate the radio, right? When you're outside of the home territory where you're at, right, you can program for a full county, as I mentioned, right, or other bands depending on where you're going geographically, right? And you do that on a regular basis, right? You can also pre-program channels and banks for where you're traveling to. For example, we go to Western New York on a not as frequent basis as I want to, but frequent enough that I've got a bank programmed for Western Mass. I have a bank programmed for Eastern and Central New York. I have a bank programmed for Western New York, and I have a local bank programmed out there. So they're already into the system, all right? And that's what we're talking about, right? In addition to that, depending on your radio, you can get assistance from other products. For example, the Blue Cat is an interface that will interface your Android phone or your Android tablet to the radio, and then you would download a repeater database into your device, and then looking at a map on your device, you can say, oh, gee, I'm traveling through this area. I want all the repeaters in this geographical area, and you tell it how big. And it will dump those into your radio, and you have full use of those frequencies, right? In addition to that, if you want to go to a specific repeater, you just touch that on your screen and your radio is instantly programmed. So lots of cool ways to make this happen. And that interface device, by the way, is $70 US as of today. So not real expensive. All right. You download a repeater book in a database and just touch the screen or the region where you're going. Right? This is how my radio is programmed. And it took me a while to decide just how I wanted to do it. And as I mentioned, my radio in the car all the time now is tuned to banks 9 and 10. And the radio just does its scan thing, stops on where it needs to. And I'm not trying to listen to hundreds of repeaters across the Commonwealth. I'm just listening to repeaters that are here locally, right? And again, when I go to Central Mass, I'll swap in Bank 8, swap out Bank 9. If I go to visit my kids in Pittsfield or I got to go down to the Big E, I'll bring in the Western Mass repeaters, right? And that's all the 2 meter and 440 repeaters. So how did I manage to program in almost 500 channels into this radio in just a few hours? Okay. And I did what was, I bought a software program. Screen sharing has stopped because the external display is disconnected. Okay. Well, let's take a look at that. We're going to go back and do that again, but let me bring up this software first. And Zoom, screen share. Excuse me once. There we go. All right, and watching the monitor over there, we're good. So this is RT Systems. There are other programming systems that are out there. This was a $50 thing. It came with a cable. There's a free one out there called Chirp. All right, where'd we go here? Let's hope that stays up. All right, so we went to Chirp, and here we are with the RT Systems. So I can program in the frequencies, right? I can plug in anything that I need to. 146.52 and my transmit frequency already comes in automatically. I have no offset because the program knows that it's a simplex frequency. I can go to an operating mode here, which is FM narrow, what have you, and we'll just leave it at automatic. And now this frequency is ready to go to my radio. But, you know, did I do this 500 some odd times? Not likely. One of the advantages of having this software and others is that you can go to external data, right? You have radio reference, repeater book, RFinder. These are repeater databases online. RFinder and radio reference are subscription services. Repeater book is free. So let's say I'm taking a trip to Las Vegas, and I can type in the location name. I can tell it, give me a radius of 10 miles around Las Vegas. I want the 2 meter repeaters. I want the 70 centimeter repeaters, and go. And now I have all of the repeaters in Las Vegas programmed, right? And what I can do is I goofed up that. There we are. What I can do, go down here, and I can do a copy go back to my original sheet here. And we'll pick up 481. And I'll do a paste. And now I have all of those repeaters ready to go into the radio, but I've got a couple of more things to do first. I'm going to go to settings and bank settings. This is where you can determine what channels go where, right? So we've got the frequency, we've got the call sign or name, we got any notes. This particular radio is analog only. So if I'm scanning all of these repeaters in Las Vegas, one thing I don't want to do is get into digital repeaters. So there's a D star, right? And I can delete the D star. Mixed mode, okay. Let's see here, we've got some DMRs and fusions, so we'll highlight those. And we'll delete. And I have another D star, DMR machine. And we've got another DMR here, right? So these 40 repeaters are now ready to be uploaded into the radio, but I haven't selected a bank, and I'm going to choose bank 10. So there you go. We got bank 10 highlighted. Copy. And we'll highlight all of these guys. Paste. Now they're all selected. They're all ready to go into the radio. And now I simply connect the radio, push it off. The radio is now programmed. Right. So once I got past the learning curve, it didn't take long to parse out the radio the way that I wanted it, the way that I'm going to use it. Right. The nice thing about this, and what helps make it more efficient, is in the old system where you had 50 channels per bank, right? And I wanted 14652 in each of the banks, I had to have 10 different 14652s programmed into the radio. The way this is laid out and the way this software works, I've got one particular frequency and I can assign it to one, more, or all of these banks, making it very efficient. So there's only one instance of 14652 out of the 500 channels that are programmed in the radio. I just tell it, where do I want it to be available when I'm listening? Right? So there's definitely a learning curve to it, but I think you can get a whole lot more fun out of your ham radio with the new dual banders, and that means portables or mobile units. They both work the same way. Just so be careful of the models that you're buying. How some of the Chinese radios work, I don't know yet. Haven't played with that. But for this worked for me. One other cute feature of the Alinco radio is it gives me the ability to change the display backlight, the color of it. So for a police department, when the police department is received, it turns blue. Right? A fire department turns red. EMS turns green. Right? A ham frequency, it turns amber. Right? There's a total of 16 colors that you can get with this. Whenever I transmit, that channel turns white. Okay? So safety going down the road, not only can I determine what I'm getting and listening to, but I also get the service out of the corner of my eye on that display. You know, what is it? Is it a ham frequency? Is it whatever? But if you're not into doing the public safety thing, all right, is it a VHF repeater? Is it a UHF repeater? Repeaters outside your normal area, repeaters inside, you have complete control over it on this particular radio. Alinco's the only one that's doing that. And this is my first Alinco radio, so I'm not sure, you know, jury's still out. Right now it's looking pretty good. Kenwood, Yaesu, ICOM, good stuff. You know, you've got Canon, Nikon, Sony, and then the price leader Pentax, right? Kenwood, Yaesu, ICOM, price leader Alinco. Yes, I have a Pentax also, so gives you an idea of my mindset. So that's that. I hope that was informative. Any questions, comments?
So, excellent presentation, great. I think it's really important to program your radio, whether it be an HT or mobile. There's been a lot of situations over the years, I've been a ham radio operator, and you talk to somebody, it's like, either what are you driving on the range or the repeater? Well, there's another repeater in the range. The other person doesn't have that program. You know, I do program, I just have one repeater program. Take the time now to avoid that situation, because then our conversation stopped, right? We go down the range, we could have kept going, but they didn't have everything programmed. And obviously, they're not going to fumble around with other driving. Yeah. But yeah, take the time to program the radio. If you drive around a certain area, Eastern Mass, Southern New Hampshire, whatever, go through, use the software, and find stuff. There's many ways to get the put it all on your radio the way you like it. That's all, you know, outlined here, and put it in there. And then when someone says, "Hey, meet me," or this repeater is busy, let's go over to the other repeater. It covers the same area. You have that option because you met on this repeater. You broke in, like you agreed to be here, but it's busy. Hey guys, can we make a call? Hey, Jack, meet me over on this repeater so we can chat. It's free over there. You go over there. But if Jack didn't program his radio, then I'm like, oh, I can't, Kevin, sorry. All right, bye, Jack. I'll talk to someone else. But it really does come in handy to put the effort in up front to program your radio. And then you have options, whether you're driving down the road or have your HT. But yeah, great presentation, Paul. Thank you.
Great, thanks.
Can I ask you a couple questions before you, how do you download? You do it, is there a USB port or something on the?
Different radios do it differently, right? Most of them have an interface port. Some of them, you'll take the microphone out and the dedicated cable for that radio will plug into the mic port, or it will plug into the speaker port. And it's just serial communications from there. So the radio knows the difference between, okay, hey, I'm a speaker out, but when I see this particular type of input, I'll become an RS-232 transceiver on this particular port. So it all depends on the make of the radio. It depends on, you know, which one you got.
A lot of these come with Bluetooth now?
Bluetooth is a big up and coming thing.
Because I have hearing aids.
Yeah.
You're talking about talking on the, this way, all I gotta do is just push it, and I can talk to my, you know, I can use my hearing aids to communicate.
One radio that's out that does Bluetooth is Anytone.
Anytone?
Yeah. Go to bridgecompsystems.com, you can get the information on that.
Yeah, it's taken quite a while, but even the commercial two-way radios are now coming out Bluetooth compatible. So, yep, definitely. All right, anything else, anybody? All right, and don't forget, for those that are new to this, you got a club to come to get questions answered, right? So there's plenty of help out there. Thank you, Bill.
Excellent, Paul, thank you. You new people here, you'll get to know Paul a lot because he does a lot of our presentations. Okay, two things. Richard brought in a box full of QSTs. Right, that's to help yourself, right? Yeah, you're giving him away. Yeah, okay, so help yourself on your way out if you want any. And I'm just gonna go back to what I mentioned earlier about the possibility of a second trailer and doing the flea markets and stuff like that. Has anybody kicked it around their head while we're here?
Who's gonna pull a second trailer?
Well, we're gonna tractor trailer. Where are you going? We're gonna keep it as a single axle so a SUV can do it. That means Ken, myself. I don't know about Paul. I don't know how much you can tow. No? Okay, so we'll keep it small enough so an SUV can tow it. Yeah, but the problem is storage. Who wants it? They ain't coming to my house. My wife won't put up with that at all. She already told me to clean the shed. So anyhow, any negatives on it? Any negative thinking? Any positive thinking? Positive notes? What's that?
Like the storage unit?
A storage unit would, they're not cheap, first of all.
Okay.
Yeah. So what I would ask is everybody that's out driving around, look around you, see if you can find some trailers in somebody's yard. That's going to be the way to get into this thing cheap, is to find a trailer that's it's got to be weatherproof. It's got to have a good roof and sides. What's that? Can't hear you.
No. There's no floor space?
No.
That's what I do in my trailer.
Yeah, we're maxed at the weight limit. So single axle, 2-inch ball, 6 foot by 10, 12, something like that. Yeah. So, Dave?
Would this be used during the winter time? Probably not, right?
Probably would not be used in the winter.
So you can store it in my place.
Okay. All right. Got a lot of hills there. Go ahead, Bob.
Look for a travel trailer.
Yeah.
You can strip them, and a lot of the old ones are cheap. You got to replace the tires.
They are,
bearings, and all that stuff. But you can find them weather tight sometimes for free.
You can. Unfortunately, I'm experienced with those. A lot of them smell bad. Well, no, it's mold. A travel trailer has to be stripped right to the outside walls, and then you have to put new plywood on. Yeah. I agree. They are cheap or free. Yep. No, I thank you for that. All right. So with that, we're going to call it a night. I want to thank you all for coming, especially you guys online too that couldn't get here. And new people that showed up, I sure hope you come again. All right. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Bill.